Hey everyone. Tonight we revisit one of the most haunting unsolved mysteries in recent American history, the disappearance of Maura Murray, a promising college student, a quiet winter road, and a trail that ends in silence. What happened that February night still baffles investigators and captivates minds around the world. Before we settle in, feel free to like the video and subscribe if these true crime journeys are your kind of story. Also, drop a comment with where you're watching from and what time it is. It's always fascinating to see our little late night community connect from across the globe. Now, take a deep breath, dim the lights if you'd like, and let's drift into the cold, quiet mystery together. On a February evening in 2004, a young woman named Maura Murray left her dorm room at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, appearing somber but resolute. She was 21, studying nursing, eager for a fresh start after recent heartbreak and personal struggles. The air was crisp, tinged with winter's lingering chill, and freshly fallen snow glistened beneath the campus lights. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that made every step seem louder, every shadow more pronounced. The tranquility masked a growing tension within Mora, an unease she carried silently as she packed her things and slipped out the door. By that point, Maura had already fueled a gas tank, bought groceries, and withdrawn $140 from an ATM. She stopped at a convenience store in Amherst, chatting briefly with the clerk, her calm voice betraying none of the urgency she must have felt. She bought aspirin, tea, and snacks, mundane items, yet hints of a spontaneous road trip or quick escape. The clerk would later describe her as polite and composed. No hint of fear, no plea for help, just a young woman going about a simple errand. Her silver 1996 Saturn sedan held more than snacks, though. In the car's trunk, her dorm room bedspread and clothes suggested she intended to be gone for days, perhaps weeks. She did not say goodbye to friends, nor did she explain her destination. She had told her professors she was leaving for a family emergency and sent a text to her boyfriend saying she would visit home in Haverhill, New Hampshire, for a few days. In truth, she planned to drive north to visit her father's grave at Fort Devens, Massachusetts. But even that story wasn't told. It was a motive, but not a confession. Just after midnight on February 9th, Mora set off up Route 9, the Saturn's headlights, illuminating winding roads flanked by darkened woods and patches of snow. She followed familiar highways, her planned route taking her roughly 2.5 hours north, through quiet New England towns. But fate intervened in the small town of Haverhill, New Hampshire. At around 7 p.m., hoping to fill a reservoir with gasoline, she pulled into the mobile station at Four Corners, a modest cluster of convenience store, gas pumps, and a nearby fire station. That was the last time anyone saw her behind the wheel. Just 2 hours later, a freshman geology student from the University of Vermont was driving Route 112, a winding back road known as the Kankamagoose Highway. She noticed a car, a Saturn, parked on the shoulder, headlights still on, tail lights glowing furtively. As she drew closer, curiosity urged her to pull over. The car door was open. The hood was up. The driver was gone. Her first thought, instinctive and cold, was alarm. The student parked her vehicle a safe distance away, phoned 911, and waited. The temperature hovered in the teens, and snow dusted the car's roof, signaling it had been left for a while. Responding quickly, New Hampshire State Trooper James Lawrence arrived shortly after. He stepped out into the frigid air, eyes scanning the scene. The Saturn sat quietly, its engine cold. Inside, the passenger seat held Maura's belongings, her sunglasses, cell phone, and her ham radio equipment. An empty Coca-Cola bottle rested in a cup holder. The trooper found her cell phone in the operative mode, but there were no missed calls, no cries for help. Checking the ATM activity, he saw the earlier withdrawal. He checked the campus. Nobody reported her missing, so he made the decision 1,000 law enforcement officers might. He would wait for Maura to return. He set up flares behind the vehicle and waited. Within an hour, another trooper arrived to assist, and together they waded through the cold. They waded into the night, and the next morning, as the temperature fell further, and snow began to drift again. But Maura never returned. As dawn broke on February 10th, her disappearance was no longer a possibility. It became a case. Her parents were called. The vacuity of her missing status etched its way into every official document. A high-functioning, intelligent young woman, raised in a stable home, educated, driven, a puzzle now missing its central piece. From that moment, a web of questions began to entangle anyone who cared to look. Why did she leave her car behind with the door open? Why was the hood up? Was it a mechanical issue she had tried and failed to fix? It seemed plausible at first, the telltale signs of a car problem. A flat tire was ruled out. A tow truck never arrived. The Saturn looked intact, save for the open hood. A blocked radiator hose, perhaps, but technicians found nothing. No debris under the vehicle. No sign of tampering. No footprints around the car except those of officers and rescuers. The harsh cold and traffic had erased any trace she had been there. There were no security cameras in the area, no witnesses, except the student's call and her memory of a lone car. Maura's disappearance unfolded like the chapters of a thriller. Her story was told in fragments, every withdrawal from an ATM, every text message, every detail of her last known moments. Detectives examined her family, her ex-boyfriend, her former roommates, her circle of friends. They probed her academic pressures, her personality, her lover's quarrel, jealousy, depression, a desire to run away. None of it seemed to justify abandoning everything without a word. Investigators went to her dorm, her home, her father's grave. They retraced her final purchases. They scrutinized her purchases of alcohol and promethazine, a prescription drug with sedative effects. They discovered she had sought to insure her car for only days before. Could she have planned to stage her departure? But even that made little sense. No alias was found. No new phone line, no ticket purchased. No large cash expenditures. No sign she had fled. She simply vanished from the side of a quiet mountain road, leaving only a woman's car, keys in the ignition, her belongings inside. The small New Hampshire community became gripped by the mystery. Volunteers canvassed the woods. Family friends handed out flyers. A local pathologist and a forensic expert studied the scene photos. One theory emerged. She may have hit something, a deer perhaps, and abandoned the vehicle to seek help on foot. But no evidence supported this. Another theory. She accepted a ride from a Good Samaritan who turned out to be someone else entirely. Stranger abduction, non-sexual incapacitation, an opportunistic predator, or maybe a well-disguised nemesis. As the days turned into weeks, searches grew cold. A few personal items turned up along similar roadways, an earring, a breath mint carrier, though none could be definitively traced to Maura. A single witness claimed to have seen a man with a dog near the spot earlier that day, but his description was vague. No DNA was found. Nothing conclusive. Public interest swelled. Podcasts, documentaries, true crime forums. A dedicated fan base emerged. Theories multiplied. Some speculated she staged her disappearance. Others believed she died in the wild, succumbing to exposure or animal attack. The most chilling possibility: she was abducted by someone lying in wait. The most hopeful: she exchanged identities, started anew in anonymity. Each scenario had adherents, none had proof. The story of Maura Murray is not complete yet. Her seat remains empty, her fate unrevealed. We know who she was, we know where she was last spotted, but everything beyond that is conjecture, shadows, whispers, maybe a glimpse of truth in a single undated photograph or a passing word on a forum. The trajectory of her life, so promising, so ordinary, collapsed into a riddle that still aches to be solved. To understand the disappearance of Maura Murray, one must understand the life she led before that fateful day. She was born on May 4th, 1982, in Hampshire, Massachusetts, the youngest daughter of Fred and Lori Murray. The Murrays were a large family, close-knit and driven, with 5 children raised in the steady rhythms of small-town life. Fred, a fervent advocate for his children, was a highway maintenance supervisor, and Lori was a nurse. By all accounts, Maura had a bright future. She excelled in school, particularly in math and science, and her determination earned her a spot at the prestigious United States Military Academy at West Point. She enrolled at West Point in 2000, following in the footsteps of her father's belief in structure and ambition. There, she studied chemical engineering and ran track, competing with the same intensity she had always shown. But something changed during her time at the academy. After a minor incident involving unauthorized use of a stolen credit card number to order food, something that might seem trivial to some but serious in the eyes of a military institution, Maura decided to leave. Whether it was her own decision or one made for her, she transferred to the University of Massachusetts Amherst to pursue nursing, a profession closer to her mother's. In Amherst, she was known as quiet, but dependable. She worked part-time as a campus security guard and lived in Kennedy Hall, a dormitory that stood several stories tall with views of the campus green. Those who knew her described her as reserved, but warm once trust was earned. She was in a long-distance relationship with a fellow West Point cadet named Billy Rausch. The two kept in touch frequently by phone and email, though recent months had seen signs of strain between them. Maura was also under a considerable amount of stress in the weeks leading up to her disappearance. On February 5th, just 4 days prior, she had a breakdown while working her security shift. Her supervisor reported finding her in tears, inconsolable. When asked what was wrong, Maura simply said, "My sister." Later it emerged that she had spoken to her sister Kathleen on the phone that evening. Kathleen, who struggled with addiction, had told Maura that she had just left a rehabilitation facility and had been picked up by her fiancé, who brought her directly to a liquor store. The details of that conversation weighed heavily on Maura. That same night, she received a second phone call that left her further distressed. The full content of that call has never been disclosed, but its emotional impact was clear. Fred Murray, her father, visited Amherst the following weekend. He brought a new car for Maura to consider purchasing and spent time with her shopping and dining out. That Saturday night, Maura borrowed his Toyota Corolla to attend a party on campus. Around 3:30 a.m., on her way back to her father's motel, she crashed the car into a guardrail. There was no alcohol detected at the scene, and no charges were filed, but the accident may have added to Maura's growing sense of anxiety and pressure. Fred later said he was not angry about the incident, only concerned for her safety. The car was damaged, but drivable. After the accident, Fred filed an insurance claim. He and Maura spent Sunday discussing repairs and future plans. Then he left to return home, trusting that she would manage things at school. Maura spent the rest of the day in her dorm room, quietly browsing online maps of Vermont and the White Mountains. In New Hampshire, she searched for lodgings in Burlington and for directions to various cabins and motels. She also placed a phone call to a condominium owner in Bartlett, New Hampshire, where her family had vacationed in the past. She inquired about availability, but ultimately did not book a room. What was she planning? A spontaneous trip to clear her head? An escape from the pressures of her life? Or something more permanent? Her actions were deliberate but ambiguous. Her choice to tell professors about a fabricated family emergency added to the confusion. It gave her a reason to leave, but not one rooted in truth. The drive north in that battered Saturn was perhaps the last thing she did with full control over her fate. Somewhere beyond the realm of her search history and gas receipts, she made a decision. And then, just like that, she was gone. In the days following the accident, the investigation gained urgency. Her father arrived in Haverhill and began to canvass the area with an intensity only a parent can summon. He was relentless, talking to neighbors, asking gas station clerks, walking miles through the snow-covered trails. He handed out flyers, spoke to reporters, and begged anyone with information to come forward. His heartbreak was raw and public. He did not hide his grief. He refused to accept theories of suicide or voluntary disappearance. Fred believed from the very beginning that Maura was the victim of foul play, but the authorities were slower to act. In the early days, they treated Maura's disappearance as that of a missing adult, not a crime. She was 21 after all, and had the legal right to disappear if she chose. There was no immediate evidence of abduction, no signs of violence, no blood in the vehicle. That approach led to delays in evidence gathering and search mobilization. By the time official search teams arrived with dogs, helicopters, and thermal imaging, the snow had already come. Any scent trail was gone, any footprints erased. Nevertheless, the search continued. Over 100 people participated in the first major search, coordinated by New Hampshire Fish and Game, local police, and volunteers. They combed the area surrounding the crash site through thick woods and icy riverbanks. A tracking dog picked up a scent from one of Maura's gloves and followed it for about 100 yards, then abruptly lost the trail. That led investigators to believe she may have accepted a ride from a passing motorist. But if she had, who was it? The few locals who lived near the scene offered limited insight. One neighbor, Butch Atwood, a school bus driver, said he had seen Maura at the scene of the accident and offered help. She declined, saying she had already called AAA. But later, phone records showed she had not placed any such call. Why lie? Was she trying to avoid attention? Did she expect someone else to arrive? Butch said Maura did not appear intoxicated or injured, just cold and shaken. He returned to his house and called the police. When authorities arrived minutes later, she was gone. The chilling possibility became clear. In the space of just 7 minutes between Butch Atwood's call and the arrival of police, Maura had vanished into the darkness. No one saw her leave, no headlights passed, no voices were heard, no sign of a struggle. Only silence remained. Police were left with a car, a few fading footprints in the snow, and the haunting absence of a young woman who had seemingly disappeared without a trace. As winter deepened, Maura Murray's story spread far beyond the winding roads of Haverhill. Local news stations reported the case, followed by regional newspapers. There was something about the mystery that gripped the public imagination. A young woman, intelligent, driven, full of promise, had vanished in minutes from a cold and lonely mountain road, leaving no answers behind. Her face appeared on missing person posters, her long dark hair and quiet expression becoming symbols of something unresolved. Her family refused to let the world forget. Fred Murray gave interviews to anyone who would listen, retelling the timeline and insisting that Maura would never have left by choice. Her siblings joined the effort, posting flyers, organizing search parties, and speaking to media outlets. They believed something had happened to her, something beyond her control. But with no witnesses, no confirmed sightings, and no physical evidence of a crime, the investigation stalled. Leads dried up, the trail went cold, and then the internet took notice. By the mid 2000s, online forums and communities dedicated to unsolved mysteries began discussing the case. Threads appeared on Reddit, message boards, and independent blogs. Maura's story stood out. It was puzzling, incomplete, and emotionally charged. There were clues, but none that formed a clear picture. Her disappearance felt like a riddle no one could solve. People from all over the world began searching for answers, asking who Maura was, what she had been going through, and where she could have gone. Timelines and maps soon circulated online. Internet sleuths reconstructed her final hours, estimated drive times, and studied satellite images. Archived police reports and news clips were examined in detail. Her emotional state became a topic of intense speculation. Some believed she had encountered someone dangerous. Others wondered whether she had simply reached a breaking point and chosen to leave everything behind. As more people joined the conversation, the mystery evolved. A single case became a nationwide obsession. Small discoveries, like a pair of gloves near a trail, an anonymous package sent to police, or a blurry photograph taken in another country, were treated like breadcrumbs that might lead to the truth. But each one faded as quickly as it appeared. One widely discussed theory suggested that Maura had been abducted. Supporters of this idea pointed to the brief window of time between her last confirmed sighting and the arrival of police. It wouldn't have taken long for someone to pull over, offer help, and drive away with her. Some even speculated that the person may have posed as a friendly stranger. If she had accepted the ride, and if the individual had bad intentions, the outcome could have been devastating. Another theory proposed that Maura had left voluntarily. People noted the recent challenges in her life, the incident involving a credit card, the stress from a recent car accident, and an emotional phone call just days before she disappeared, combined with her online searches for remote cabins and isolated locations. Some speculated she may have been seeking solitude or a fresh start. According to this idea, she may have intended to distance herself from everything familiar. However, this theory remains unconfirmed. There were no records of large cash withdrawals, no signs of a new identity, and no evidence she had assistance. No one has ever stepped forward to say they helped her. While the idea continues to circulate online, it rests mostly on interpretation rather than fact. Maura's case remains one of the most debated missing persons stories in modern memory. It has become a reflection of how people seek meaning in mystery, and how a life can echo through silence. For now, her story remains open, unfinished, and waiting. Still, the idea that Maura had chosen to disappear continued to echo across forums and articles. For some, it offered a kind of comfort. It allowed them to believe she might still be out there, living quietly in anonymity, far from the noise and pain of the world she had left behind. But Fred Murray refused to believe it. Year after year, he continued his search. He became a constant figure in Haverhill, walking the roads where his daughter had vanished, speaking with reporters, pressing the police for answers. He petitioned for access to case files, held vigils, and maintained a website dedicated to finding Maura. He aged before the public eye, his grief deepening but never consuming his resolve. In his heart, he believed Maura had met with foul play, and that someone, somewhere, knew the truth. In 2017, renewed interest in the case led to a documentary series that aired nationally. The show brought Maura's story to a new generation and uncovered previously unreleased interviews and evidence. With the attention came renewed scrutiny, new tips, and a wave of public empathy. People still cared, they still wanted answers. The Cold Case Division of New Hampshire's State Police reopened aspects of the investigation. Ground searches resumed in areas previously overlooked. Cadaver dogs were brought in. New technology was used to scan soil composition, hoping to detect signs of a shallow grave. In one instance, police excavated the basement of a nearby house after tips suggested it had been involved. Nothing was found. No trace, no closure. The years rolled by, and theories continued to multiply. Some thought Maura had succumbed to the cold after wandering into the woods, and that animals or time had hidden her remains. Others believed she had been trafficked or murdered, her body hidden far from the crash site. There were even those who believed she had suffered a head injury in the accident and wandered away in a dazed state, possibly crossing into a parallel road where a driver found her and took her away, either in kindness or with sinister intent. Yet for all the speculation, not a single piece of definitive evidence has ever emerged. Not a fingerprint. Not a credit card transaction. Not a confirmed sighting. It's as though Maura slipped through the cracks of the world itself, like a figure written into a story and then erased. Her case remains open. Her face remains on missing person databases. Her name continues to echo in quiet corners of the internet, in late-night discussions, in whispered prayers of strangers who never knew her but feel the weight of her absence. Years have passed, and the world has not forgotten Maura Murray. Her story lingers not just as an unsolved case, but as a haunting reminder of how quickly a life can vanish, leaving behind only questions. Her family still waits. Her father's voice, though quieter now, still carries the same unwavering message. Maura did not simply walk away. Someone knows what happened, and the truth, however deeply buried, has not disappeared. What happened on that cold February night may never be fully known. Whether she was taken by a stranger, wandered into the dark woods, or fled from a life she no longer wanted, the silence she left behind speaks louder than words. Her disappearance carved a space in the public imagination, where empathy, fear, and mystery all reside together. In the end, Maura Murray is not just a face on a missing persons poster. She is someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone whose story deserves to be told until the final chapter is found. Until then, her name remains a question still waiting for its answer. That's where Maura's trail fades into the cold, quiet dark. The questions remain, and maybe one day the answers will surface. But for now, the mystery keeps whispering through the trees. Thank you for being here tonight. Rest easy wherever you are.